Well, I don't know if that was the way that we were hoping to cap off the 2022 preseason for the San Francisco 49ers, but hey, that's the way the cookie crumbled. We're going to get into the good, we're going to get into the not very good. There's probably a little bit of of bad than there is good, but we'll talk about it all. We'll see. Are we going to overreact? What's the proper level of reactions in regard to all this game against the Texans? Of course, we know how it turned out. Not the optimal outcome, but you already know the vibes. Drop an SD in the chat. I can't even talk. Drop an SDS in the chat if you're still vibing with your boy. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Hey, shout out to SDS. I know it was a rough go. It was a rough go. This will be our collective space where we air out our grievances. We kind of process it, we work through it, and we get it behind us so we can start focusing on the Bears coming week 1, September 11th. But let's talk about what's going on right now. Obviously, there's a lot of buildup heading into this game. We heard, the starters are going to play a lot. They're going to play the whole first half. Clearly didn't feel that way, and they pulled Trey Lance after 2 drives. You also had really barely any starters out there on the defense, which I'm okay with. I preferred it that way. We understand what the defense is. We understand that what they bring to the table. We did not need to see any starters. So that was perfectly fine. We didn't see Trent Williams, perfectly fine. Didn't see Debo, didn't see Ayuk. It's fine with me. But what we did see is we saw the offensive line, again, without Trent Williams. You had Jalen Moore starting at left tackle. You have Colton McKivitz at right tackle. And the normal 3 in the interior. What it ultimately led to was just not a lot of continuity up front. Felt like everyone struggled at times. I don't think anyone on the offensive line really had a perfectly clean game. And we already know everything starts up front. In football, I personally put such a huge emphasis on the trenches is because I truly believe that everything starts up front. It starts with the snap from the center to the quarterback. You have to allow at least 2.5 seconds for your quarterback to be able to work through his progressions and allow receivers to run routes downfield. You have to open up running lanes for your running backs. So we got a little bit of it all in a not so good sense. But let's talk about it. Let's work through it. Let's see if there are any alarms that we need to ring, if we're really concerned. I do want to hear from you guys. So I think we can all take a step back. There wasn't a whole lot of positives, but let's start with the positives. And then I'm going to poll you guys for what's concerning to you. And I'll tell you what I think, if I think it's concerning or if I think it's just a work in progress. So I think if we go back and we look at the game, I think one of the best plays of the day was from Samuel Womack. Shout out the 5th-round rookie out of Toledo. He had really nice coverage in the corner of the end zone where you had, I think it was Davis Mills who threw that pass. Samuel Womack did a really good job of getting his hand in there, causing it to deflect and kick back. Tarvarius Moore was able to come away with the interception. So that was a nice play. You like to see that. Samuel Womack, again, firmly looks like he will be the slot cornerback. Today he played on the outside. So we're getting a little bit of both from Samuel Womack. We're getting to see, we project him as the starting slot corner. We saw him play on the outside a little bit. So we got to see kind of some of his versatility. So that's, I think, a positive thing to take away, that the 5th-round rookie continues to progress and take steps forward and create plays. Again, A big part of being a defensive back is having an ability to just be a playmaker. So, again, there wasn't a whole lot of good, but we got to talk about some of the good that came away with it from the 17 to goose egg game against the Texans. Let's see. I we're going to get into the running back, we're going to get into the quarterback, we're going to get into the O line, we're going to get into the D line, we're going to get into all of it. But I felt personally today that Ross Dwelley put together a good day. I don't think we could say that about a lot of guys. I think there was a lot of ups and downs today from the San Francisco 49ers, but I do look at Ross Dwelley as someone who I've been firmly vocal about. I don't know if he's going to make the roster this year, or at least it's an uphill battle for Dwelley, who's someone that I've liked in the past, just because we understand what you have to do as a tight end in this system. You have to block. You have to block. But when they throw you the ball, you got to catch too. Ross Dwelley had 2 really nice catches. He had a total of 3 receptions for 42 yards. He had that one really nice one in the breadbasket over the middle. Brock Purdy, I think it was Brock Purdy who threw that one. That was a really nice catch by Ross Dwelley to go over the top and snag it. But you also had that play to the sideline where I thought that was a first down. I thought he converted it. They didn't call it a first down. And then the 49ers got stuffed on the 4th down. But I thought Ross Dwelley did a good job. And I think that was the type of performance you needed to see from Ross Dwelley to prove that he can edge out a Tyler Kroft. He can edge out a Troy Fumagalli. I really do think Charlie Warner is pretty solidified at this point. So that was a positive. Felt like Ross Dwelley took a step forward in kind of the way of kind of solidifying himself, because he's also proving he can play fullback as well. So I thought Ross Dwelley had a nice day. And he needed to have a nice day. So that was cool to see out of someone who I felt was in the middle of a roster battle. Maybe that was just enough to give them the faith that Ross Dwelley can be on the roster moving forward. At this point, if I have to look at the tight ends, I'm looking at Kittle, Dwelley, and Warner. I'd feel pretty comfortable with that. I think Dwelley did a good job. And again, showing his versatility to also be able to play fullback. So the positives list is about that big, so it won't take very long to get through it. I see a lot of people in the chat upset. I get it. We're going to get into the things that weren't so good for sure about this game. But again, we do want to focus on some of the positives. Brock Purdy looked pretty good. I don't know, man. I've been firmly believing that Nate Sudfeld has had a pretty strong hold on the quarterback too. And we know Brock Purdy, it was funny on Twitter because it was like almost everyone at the same time hit send on Brock Purdy's looking really, really good. And then he threw that pick to the underneath linebacker that he did not see, threw it straight to him. And you saw the reactions from that. It was kind of funny because I was about to send off a tweet too. But Brock Purdy was looking pretty good. All things considered, he had the interception, but 13 of 20, 182 yards. I thought Brock Purdy looked confident. And when I'm looking at quarterback play, I'm also just looking at confidence. Do you feel like the moment's too big for you? Or do you feel like you can settle in and operate the offense? I felt like Brock Purdy looked more comfortable today opposed to Nate Sudfeld. So I don't know if Nasty Nate is feeling the pressure of Brock Purdy, kind of, because we saw Brock Purdy get extended time, then Nate Sudfeld came back in, then Brock Purdy. Kind of feels like there's low-key a little bit of a QB battle going for QB2. I don't know, but I felt like Brock Purdy looked pretty good. And considering, his play style, he's definitely a little bit more agile than Nate Sudfeld. He does throw a good ball, and once he gets more confidence and he's able to kind of build up that callus within the system, he's gonna be a better quarterback. And if you look at Nate Sudfeld and you look at Brock Purdy, they're pretty even. And like I said, I've been confidently in the Nate Sudfeld category. But when I see again, we had this conversation last year in training camp when it was Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. When you got a veteran and a rookie playing at a pretty similar level, I got to keep the same energy. I kind of got to lean towards the rookie because the rookie's going to go higher. His ceiling he's trending up. The veteran is kind of who the veteran is. So we'll see how it plays out. But I do think Brock Purdy has definitely leveled off with Nate Sudfeld. Now it's going to be a decision by the 49ers. Who do they want? Or do they keep all three? But then if they keep all three, who gets cut? It's going to be a fascinating scenario. But I thought he looked pretty good, all things considered. But we'll see how it. I still believe they believe. I believe they believe in Nate Sudfeld inside that building. So we'll see what ultimately comes of it. Let's see what other positives can we pull from this game. Charles Omenihu had a sack. Samson Ebukam had a sack. Samson Ebukam had a really nice play. He pushed the tackle to the outside. Once he got to the drop where the quarterback was, he instantly cut inside. Tackle was completely overmatched. Couldn't handle it. It was the backup tackle, but it was a good play by Samson Ebukam to get the sack. You also had a really nice sack from Charles Omenihu. Tarvarius Moore came away with the interception. We talked about that a little bit. Any other positives that you guys want to talk about before we dive into some of the more glaring issues surrounding today's game? Because there were a lot. So I figured we were going to be talking about that for the majority of the show. So I wanted to get through some of the positives because it's not all negative, but a lot of it wasn't great. No ID says, let's get to the negative. I don't got time for this. I don't got time for this. So I think when we look at the not so good with the San Francisco 49ers, I think the first thing that we all looked at today was the O-line. And looking at whether it was tackle, guard, center, guard, tackle, it was rough. There was just no. And so I hate, I was at joint practices, right? And I think joint practices were better work than what we're seeing in these preseason games. But in joint practices with Trent Williams out there, it looked a whole lot similar. The 49ers offense against the Vikings could not move. Like, it looked a lot the same. Again, Trent Williams is going to make a difference for sure. Trent Williams is going to make a difference on that offensive line, but the starters and the way it's projected to be is Banks, Brendel, Burford, and McKivitz. That was the starting offensive line against the Vikings in joint practices. In joint practices, the 49ers had a really hard time protecting Trey Lance, creating running lanes, and things like that. So I think we're starting to see that kind of transition into what we saw against the Texans. Obviously, Trent is going to make it a little bit better. But I think the concern levels, they're starting to accelerate for specifically the interior offensive line. Obviously, Jalen Moore started at left tackle. I'm not particularly too high on Jalen Moore. I try not to bury these players because I don't know what they're going through. I don't know if they're injured. I don't know. But, we look at Jalen Moore. He started all of his rookie year at left tackle because Trent Williams did not play in training camp. He started all of preseason as a rookie last year, and he looked good. He looked serviceable at minimum. Then you saw him against the Colts. He looked good. Then you saw him against the Rams and the Jags, and he did not look good. And then he didn't even get a chance against the Rams week 18. It feels like Jalen is kind of, and again, Jalen's coming back from injury, so we're going to, again, give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt that he has been hurt for almost all of training camp. Didn't participate in joint practices. So this is like his first real week back. But let's be honest. Jalen Moore struggled mightily. He got beat to the inside. Like, again, as an offensive lineman, when you're dropping into your pass set, especially as a tackle when you're on an island, you cannot kick step too far out, and you cannot get back into your stance too fast, because if you do, you will see what happened, and the defensive lineman will be like, oh, you're giving me the clearest path to the quarterback, which is to the inside, and they're going to take it and they're going to whoop you, and it's going to look really bad. And we saw that from Jalen Moore. So, and we saw it a couple times. The 49ers offensive line, whether it was Colton McKivitz, it felt like Colton McKivitz, who I think has had a good camp, but he struggled a little bit in joint practices, and he's definitely struggled in this preseason game tonight. And he gave up a good amount of pressures on his end, with almost the same thing. He was getting beat to the inside as well. So that is a little bit concerning, because obviously when you have your bookend tackles, and you could picture Colton McKivitz being the starter, you want to see a little bit more, especially when it, like, who are we talking about on the defensive side for the Texans? Like, they don't have a lot of star power on that defensive line, but they were seemingly creating havoc. That guy, Kamu Gruger Hill, was constantly causing issues on the interior. Jerry Hughes was constantly causing issues on that defense of line for the Texans. So just wait. just wait. Just wait until the Chargers come to town with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Just wait. What's going to happen then? Like, so it's we're going to have my boy Brian Burns. Brian Burns is going to show up here eventually. Oh goodness. Like, that is a whole lot of speed that the 49ers do not want to mess with. So there's just a laundry list of star-studded pass rushers on the slate for the San Francisco 49ers. So starting to get a little concerning, obviously, based on what we've seen. Mike McGlinchey had a pretty good camp, but ultimately, he's dealing with some knee irritation. So Banks struggled. Burford struggled at times. Brendel, I thought, did okay. I didn't see anything that was like ultra glaring from Brendel that like really stood out, opposed to like some misses from Banks. When you had that 4th and 2 conversion, you had Banks with an inside shade. It was actually lined up really well for Banks to have a successful block. Really, what Banks needed to do was get his head across and really drive his opposite side shoulder into the defensive tackle and cut off his lane to being able to penetrate on the interior. I don't know what Banks was doing. It felt like he took a real soft step to the inside. He didn't shoot his head across the defensive tackle's body. The defensive tackle went straight up, blew up Warner, who was trying to pull. It was not a good play. It was, when you look at a guy like Banks, and I know Banks will say the same exact thing about himself, you got to make that block. Interior pressure on gap scheme type plays is the surefire way to just destroy it immediately. If you're going to try to pull and you get interior pressure, don't even try. Like, you have to cut off all interior pressure right away. You have to allow time for your pullers to get by. And unfortunately, Banks didn't allow that to happen. Guy came right through, blew right through the hole, and just demolished everything. So again, as a whole, wasn't great. As a combined, or as an individual, I guess, execution from the guys up front, I think they're going to want to see, they're going to Woo, woo. It was a little tough. It was a little tough out there. Um, it was man, it was brutal, man. It was a little brutal. It hurt a little bit watching the 49ers try to get into groove today. But I would love to say like, oh, this is an outlier or this is something that we haven't seen, but it's kind of common to be perfectly honest with you guys. Like they have struggled at times, throughout the practices that I've seen, just really get into rhythm. So ultimately, we saw this last year. We saw the kind of lack of rhythm for the guys up front. It's starting to feel a little bit more like the same, which is tough. But again, I'm not going to smash the concern alarms for the offensive line, but they have definitely went up a notch. I'll be honest. Like my concerns for the offensive line are starting to increase. Um, and I mean, I'm starting to think about my guy. I'm like, man, you know who we could have used today? You know who could have helped kind of be that band-aid, that kind of glue piece to kind of fix things up a little bit. Uh Needed my guy Bronny out there. Felt like we needed some Bronny action just to kind of calm things down up front. I think one of the things too with Brunskill, he can play tackle. So I think it's a poor time, unfortunately, for him to be hurt right now because I think the 49ers could use him. And it would be interesting to see how they would be using him at this point. But it's been a tough go for the 49ers offensive line. But they were able to open up some holes for Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon ran a little bit better. Uh, would we agree with that he ran a little bit better at times? It wasn't the whole time, but at times Trey Sermon found the running lane, was able to get positive yards. He looked better than yesterday or the previous game, I would say. But then I think a lot of fans saw the 4th and 2 stuffage, and I don't know if that was necessarily his fault. Like I said, I think Banks really kind of blew up that play, or I would say the defensive tackle that Banks was responsible for blew up that play. But I think, give credit where it's due. I do think Trey Sermon was finding running lanes. He was able to get a little bit more yardage. But I want to ask you guys this. Even though, Trey Sermon went 8 carries, 20 yards at 2.5 a clip, and then you had Jordan Mason go 4 for 7 at 1.8 a clip, but you had the biggest play that Jordan Mason had on the day got taken back because of penalty. Do you see the decisiveness and the urgency that Jordan Mason runs with compared to Trey Sermon? I feel like if we were to do cut ups and like somehow layer the clips on top of each other, you would really kind of be able to see Jordan Mason and again his decisive running style. Um, he is fast. He knows where to go. He is not thinking twice about putting his foot in the ground and saying, I need to go left, I need to go right, or I need to go through your face. So those are the things that I look at when evaluating. I think Trey Sermon, again, he had a better day, and it's what you wanted to see out of Trey Sermon, but you also can't discredit Mason either, and the way he plays. So again, I don't think the running back situation got any more clear today. We saw Jeff Wilson get some carries. He had the best average on the day at 5.3 a clip for 3 carries for 16 yards. He did a better job. but I don't think there was anything definitive one way or the other from Trey Sermon or Jordan Mason to really separate either of them other than just evaluating the skill set. When you look at the just you put your scouting glasses on and you just look at the skill set and you just again look at the way they set up blocks, hit the hole, they're decisive with their cuts, those types of things, yards at like Jordan Mason just actually at this point feels quicker. Like it feels like the process is faster with Jordan Mason, and you actually would think it would kind of be the opposite with Trey Sermon being his second year. Uh, but that's again where I still kind of am leading towards Jordan Mason. They may end up keeping both. They may end up only keeping one out of those two guys. But again, I think Jordan Mason's still showing that he's really good. Might not have translated to the stat sheet today, but I think Jordan Mason looks pretty good. So we'll see what ultimately happens. Again, the Ty Davis Price usage was interesting. Really didn't use him at all until the end of the game. And then when he got in, he got nothing. He got actually -3 yards on the day. So but I think they know what they have with TDP. Like TDP is gonna make this roster. That's not a question. Um, it's Trey Sermon or Jordan Mason. Are they going to make the roster? Feels like they like Hasty too, and they like Jeff Wilson. So it's gonna be really interesting. Trade Sermon for an offensive lineman. Again, if I had to be cutthroat and I had to put myself in a player personnel manager director's shoes and we're looking to cut deals, like I would be looking into it. Like if anyone would, do a swap, maybe a offensive lineman for certain, I don't know. But it's again, I don't think either back really solidified themselves um, at this point to be like. But again, you know how I feel. I see the traits that Jordan Mason has, and I'm still leaning towards Jordan Mason's traits at this point. But that doesn't mean Trey Sermon can't be a good back either. It's just it's pretty damn close. So we'll see what ultimately goes down. Let's poll the chat. Why not? We're going to be talking about roster cuts. We're going to be talking about who's going to be making this roster and all those different types of things until cut down date this next Wednesday. So we got a little under a week. Who would you guys want on the roster if it came down to Jordan Mason or Trey Sermon? I want to see. Drop it in the chat. If you just had to pick between those two guys, who would you be picking? Would it be Jordan Mason, the undrafted free agent running back out of Georgia Tech, or would you be keeping Trey Sermon, the third-round draft pick in which the 49ers traded up to get out of Ohio State? Let's test. We're our first poll of the night. Let's poll the chat. So the chat is in good form already, getting the answers in. First one off the bat, Mason. BV says Mason. Chris says Mason over Sermon. So right out the gate, we got 4. Manuel's calling for Sermon to get cut. 5 with Jason. Manuel says Mason. Mason. Well, I knew that answer, Justin. Isaiah says Mason. Cap says Mason. Mason. Whew. I haven't seen one sermon yet. I don't know. Maybe. Harris says I've seen more from Mason, to be honest. So Mason. Mason. It is Mason in a landslide. Wow. That was actually more than I was anticipating. I was expecting to see some Trey Sermons, but it's all Mason. It's literally all Mason. Harris says cohesive SDS. SDS, man. Oh, Frank Gore. Yeah, I don't know about that. Mason. Yeah, it's all Mason. I haven't seen one trade unless I missed it. Oh, damn. They're calling for the ginger beard over Sermon. Not looking good. Mason. Yeah. Oh, we got a Sermon. There we go. Rod holding it down for the Sermon truthers. We needed someone. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty surprised how like it was all Mason. We got more Mason. We got another Sermon from Antonio. My guy wants a Mason. Oh, there's a Sermon. Oh, come on, Lisa. She pulled a fast one on us. I was like, oh, look, a Sermon. Nope. Psych. Got him. So it seems like we're all on the same page with that. So we'll see what the 49ers do in this situation because it's the 49ers who took him in the third round. I would say because I think we can all kind of rationalize that right now. Oh boy. I'll try, man. I'll try, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a super good job. Cap says, Brad, calm me down about our O-line. Share your wisdom, sir. I'm going to try my best, but I don't know how much of a comforting figure I'm going to be with what I've seen today, what I've seen in joint practices, what I've seen. I mean, I was feeling good up until the Packers game. Joint practices made me like reevaluate. And then today was kind of like joint practices a little bit. So we'll get there. I'm going to come back to this. Let's wrap up on our Mason Sermon saga. Then we'll get to the the whole line. Damn, Gary, chill, dog, chill. So I think we could all rationalize if Trey Sermon was an undrafted free agent and Jordan Mason was an undrafted free agent. I don't think we'd really even be having a whole lot of a conversation. I think we at least as a group are kind of feeling that Jordan Mason has played better up until this point. So if there was no draft capital attached or where they were taken and the investment placed, I think we'd feel a lot more confident about saying who's going to make. But there lies the issue: is they spent a good amount on Sermon. So are they going to see it through, or are they going to risk releasing him and him potentially going and latching on with another team and finding success? So those are kind of the things that they have to weigh internally. It's a lot easier for us to just bing, bang, boom, make a decision one way or the other. They have to weigh out all the variables, and that is one of the variables is what they paid. Let's get back to this. I would love to calm you down, Cap. I would love to calm you down about the offensive line. I'm trying to calm myself down, to be honest with you. I haven't loved, the way the kind of the center position worked out in training camp. You guys know I'm very vocal about my guy Brunny, who was kind of a weird dynamic throughout training camp. We talked about it. Like I'm like, where's the continuity, man? Like we got centers rotating and splitting at the same time. It's like the ultimate like cluster on the interior all training camp. And I was like, I don't love this, but also I've never built a team in the NFL. So who am I to say like, oh, splitting reps and on top of rotating isn't a good idea for building continuity on the interior offensive line? But what do I know? I'm a has-been guy who played in community college. I played in D2 for stint. Who am I? Right? Like, who am I to say? But I just I just don't see, like, again, we was watching the whole center thing play out all camp, and I was just like, I don't like this, man. Just pick one. Just pick one, please. Like, just pick one and let them battle it out with the first and second units. Quit splitting, quit rotating. You got two first timers and Banks and Burford. Let them build some continuity with one of these dang centers and just let the battle play out that way. And then if you don't like, but again, we talked about it all the time. Every practice, it was so 3 plays per unit. So first string gets 3 plays, second string 3 plays, third string 3 plays, and they rotate. So Brendel would get 2 series, which means 6 plays, and then Brunskill would come in 2 series, 6 plays, and then they would alternate days, and then they would continue to split and like it was like I'm like, man, this is tough. I was like, I don't envy those offensive linemen trying to build like some continuity on that interior because it was like, how? Like your center is it's a revolving door. And I don't know if that's really a big deal. It could just be me talking into the wind. But ultimately, I hear Trent Williams talk really highly about Jason Poe. I see Jason Poe make less mistakes at this point. So I don't know what's going on with Banks. I don't know what they believe internally with Banks. Um, Banks had a good, promising game against the Packers. Oh, rough time against the Vikings and the Texans. So we'll see, man. But it does kind of feel like Jason Poe is solidifying himself on the roster. I don't know if you can let Jason Poe go at this point. But the 49ers need Mike McGlinchey back. I know a lot of people get upset with Mike McGlinchey. I know a lot of people have this negative stigma about Mike McGlinchey, but I cannot stress enough, and I've been stressing this for years now, about the importance of Mike McGlinchey. Again, he's not Trent Williams, but Mike McGlinchey is extremely important to the success of this 49ers offensive line. Again, I've been that guy that people are just telling me, oh, I'm just capping for McGlinchey. I'm just capping for McGlinchey. Oh, look at this guy just capping for McGlinchey. Like, nah, like you are seeing what I'm talking about. Like when McGlinchey's in, there's a sense of comfort and just understanding what you're going to get. When he's not in, it's like, who knows what's going to go down. So it's tough, man. It's tough. 49ers need McGlinchey back. Maybe Brunskill gets playing time. We'll see. I think Burford is it's one of the things that I've identified with Burford is he's still a rookie and he's still going to make rookie mistakes. So I think that's part of the things that like we as a whole need to understand is that Burford has the traits, the intangibles, the skill set, everything. Trent Williams this week said Burford is a first and second round talent. He's absolutely right. He is, but he's still a rookie mentally. And you're going to move slower as a rookie. So just got to give him some time, right? Just got to give him some time to acclimate to the NFL game, NFL speed, and the offense. And there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with that. And I think we just look at like Burford, he's really good, so he's going to be perfect. He's really good, but there's still going to be some of those learning curves that come along with it. So right now, I think my biggest concerns are kind of like trying to figure out what Banks is. Like, I think Banks can be good. I think Banks can be serviceable, but then he has games like tonight where it's just like doesn't look great. And I don't think he was going against, Aaron Donald. I don't think he was going against, your Grady Jarrett's or your Fletcher Cox's. I think he was going against some undrafted free agent guy. And you're just like, I don't know. I think it's if they aren't solidified on that interior, oh, it's gonna be it could be a long season. But hopefully once they start scheming and if they can get some runs to hit on the outside and then they start working some gap scheme stuff, get guys in motion, get them in pulling. Then when you start to get in that flow where you've got the defense trying to guess what you're going to do, and then Kyle counters off of everything, that's going to help your offensive line. So I'm not ready to hit the panic button yet, but like I talked about, I'm getting a little bit more concerned. I'm getting a little bit more concerned at this point, but we'll see. We'll see. Michael says, not a football topic, but how you been, Brad? I feel like we don't check in with you enough. Well, thank you, Michael. Um, I don't expect you guys to check in on me, but I appreciate it. So shout out, Michael. I guess the one win we got, I'll tell you the one win. Since, there's not a lot of fun stuff to talk about today, I'll tell you about my win today, and then we'll move on. Um, as you guys know, my son's been in the NICU for 2 months. He first couple months had the CPAP in. He always has a feeding tube. It was first in his mouth and it transferred to his nose, so he has a feeding tube. And so this makes me feel also a lot better about the game because I'm like, well, in reality, does this preseason game matter that much? Not really. But again, since you asked, I'm going to tell it, and then we'll move on and get back to football. But today he got the feeding tube out. And what was really cool about that is doctor came over, like we were super excited, going to the hospital today to get the feeding tube out. And right when the doctor said, all right, let's go, the dude literally grabbed it and went like this and yanked the whole tube out literally on cue. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like literally, she's like, "All right, we're gonna get the tube out," and he goes yank, and there's tape, and he yanked the tape off and put like it was crazy, man. So that was a big W today. So I'll take that W. Thank you for asking, but onto football. This isn't all about me. This is about the San Francisco 49ers. But thank you, Michael, for checking in. I appreciate you, man. Again, 17-0. We haven't even talked about Trey Lance yet. Should we talk about Trey Lance? We haven't even talked about Trey Lance. Trey Lance is also, I think, kind of, par for the course. I think, I've been going on the radio, and like if I go on the radio, this is what I say. I say like Trey Lance is a work in progress. We want to see Trey Lance hit the layups. We want to see Trey Lance hit the throws that he should make. We all know Trey Lance is fully capable of making all the throws. Like he can make that dart over the middle. He can hit that rope to the sideline outside the numbers. He can hit that bomb deep ball and drop it in the bucket. He can make all the throws. He can hit that layered pass, getting it over a linebacker, dropping it in between the safety. He can make all the throws. Doing it consistently is where Trey needs to, again, continue to grow and mature. And you hear them talk about it a lot on the broadcast. He's a young player. He needs the reps. He needs the reps. And that's exactly right. He needs the reps. He needs to be able to just get comfortable. And I think with confidence, he will be able to get better at those things. But again, there's a lot of weight on his shoulders. He's still trying to prove to himself that he can do it. And I think that's where we're seeing, the kind of inconsistencies. Once Trey Lance proves to himself that he can do it and do it at a high level and do it consistently, I think that's when Trey is going to really elevate. I think right now he's still kind of going through that process of just trying to do it consistently. I mean, you still see clips coming out of practice against air that he's missing. Um, so you just want to see that tighten up a little bit. Um, but again, like people are talking about keeping Jimmy. Well, if you keep Jimmy, what is Jimmy going to do behind that offensive line? Like, if you think, you know, if you think Trey is going to struggle, like Trey can move. Trey has like really good pocket awareness. He has a really good ability and feel for pressure. Jimmy, not. I actually think Trey's better at Jimmy at this point in regards to feeling pressure. Like if you put Jimmy back there, like everything would need to be like bang, 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 bang. They're I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of time this year. So you're gonna have to kind of rely on a guy like Trey Lance who can create and escape and do things with his legs. So I think out of any years, like, and considering the offensive line that we're kind of trying to figure out what we really have, this might be the year you would need a running quarterback. Like out of all years. Like if the offensive line was just a sturdy wall and we were seeing Trey Lance with no pressure and just this consistent like dropping back missing, then okay, maybe Jimmy could be a guy, but he doesn't have the time and he's got consistent pressure bearing down on him. And not on top of that, he's having to try to like again relearn how to throw, retool his mechanics, all those different types of things. Uh, it's and but I do see Trey Lance's ability to move aid him in this particular scenario, whereas Jimmy, he would be probably a little bit more efficient at getting the ball out quicker. Because he's really good at those little 5-yard ends, those little the Jimmy darts. He's pretty good at those. But you guys got, we all of us, we just have to allow Trey Lance the opportunity to grow. Ultimately, what it comes down to at the end of the day, it's going to be a tough ride. It's going to be bumps and bruises along the way. I do think, Trey is struggling a little bit uh, with his accuracy, and we knew that. We Steve Young told us this all off season, right? Like we talked about it. We're like, if we're gonna listen to anyone, it's gonna be Steve Young. Steve Young was like, he's got everything else. It's just the accuracy is something that they're trying to really work out. So we got to give it time. We got to allow it to develop and progress and those types of things. So it's preseason. That's the best part of this. The best part of all of this today, the 17-0 loss to the Texans, Davis Mill led Texans, is it's preseason. And guarantee you Kyle was not out there calling his best stuff. You didn't have the defense that we know is elite out there. You had the third stringers in early. And it did sound like Oren Burks got hurt. So maybe that was like really, really quick for them. They're like, all right, we can't mess around. Like Oren Burks is going to play a role this year, and if he's kind of having to get taken out, like, all right, let's get all the backups in. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt. It is preseason. There's no scheming. There's no game planning. There's no game script. It's just vanilla. You saw them try to get Trey comfortable. You got a little play action boot. You got some things like that. He had a really nice design play to Kyle Juszczyk. That was a good pass. We want to see more of that. Get Trey on the boot, dish it off to Kyle. You had the one to Kittle over the middle, right? Is a little high. You want to see him bring it down a little bit. But that's kind of been Trey's MO all throughout this offseason is if it's over the middle, it can sail on him a bit. So, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about this. He threw that long ball to Debo. I wouldn't say it was necessarily a dime. It was a little behind Debo. But Debo definitely drew the pass interference that didn't get called. It didn't get called. That should have been PI. He was getting mugged before he even tried to come back towards the football. So that was PI, but they didn't call it. Debo didn't even have an opportunity to go get it. So I wouldn't call it a dime. I thought it was a little behind him, but that's the thing. Like his willingness, like I have no problems with those balls. Take a drink. I have no problem with those types of throws where they're deep down the field, but they're a little behind. I'm keeping this together. They're a little bit behind because you then can have the wide receiver come back to the football and work through the defender, and that's easy PI. It's easy PI, all right? It's an easy PI, so I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. But we'll see. Yomo says, "Oh boy, Brad. Hope I am wrong, but it's looking like a long season. Just remember, guys. Just remember. Remember last year. Last year was looking like a long season. The 49ers could not do anything on offense. Just remember, well, it's perspective, right? We're kind of talking it through. We're putting our feelings out there on the table. Just remember last year couldn't do anything. Couldn't do anything, man. Like the offense was stuck. But this is the thing. Jimmy looked like he was losing the job by week 4. You go back to that Seattle game. Do you remember how terrible Jimmy played week 4 against Seattle? And he got hurt in that second half and they threw Trey Lance to the Wolves week 4. And then, I mean, I guess he got hurt because Trey Lance started the next week. Then Trey Lance got hurt. And then by all accounts, it sounded like Trey was going to start against the Colts, but Trey couldn't go. So, in fact, it was Debo on that 3rd and long against Chicago that feels like it saved kind of Jimmy's year. And then they got kind of back on track slowly. And all that stuff. And that's not disrespect. It's not disrespect at all. Like you have to be objective and look at the offense as a whole. Week 1 through 8 with Jimmy at the helm, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It wasn't good with Trey either. I know you guys remember Week 5. Week 5 wasn't good either. Week 5 looked like a dumpster fire. That whole week 3 to week half of week 8 was just not good. And didn't matter who the quarterback was. So I think ultimately at the end of the day, we just have to remember patience. The fact that the 49ers have an elite defense, that elite defense can carry this team to go a long way because the defense is going to create turnovers. Like, I think we're already kind of seeing that. You see these guys with Samuel Womack. Now, we did hear from John Lynch that Jimmy Ward will start the year on short-term IR. That's a little concerning. I would say that's a little concerning. Thankfully, the 49ers have a really good defensive line and front seven, and cornerbacks with Emmanuel Mosley and Charvarius Ward and obviously Samuel Womack. But Jimmy Ward being on the shelf for at minimum the first 4 weeks of the year, that is concerning. That's a concern. Jimmy Ward is so crucial to the success that this defense has because let's say something does pop or let's say they do get some plays, like Jimmy cleans it up. Or Jimmy's out there clamping your number one tight ends. He's clamping, he's doing a lot of work that goes unnoticed. So that, I think, is one of the most concerning things to take away from this game is that we found out that Jimmy Ward's going to be on the shelf for the first 4 games. And we look at the Tashawn Gibson signing and we're like, oh, the Tashawn Gibson signing makes more sense because they need 4 safeties. And maybe they're like, we don't know if we can totally rely on Taylor Hawkins yet to be that 4th guy. We need a guy who's maybe been to a Pro Bowl before. And, Gibson didn't have a super stellar start to his 49ers career. So let's see here. Read in the chat. Chat's having fun, per usual, as I can see. Chat's having fun, as I can see. But guess what? We now have... Jeez. How many days? Is it 16 days? 16 days until week 1 officially kicks off. So it is going to be fun to watch. It's going to be quite the ride, but I'm not hitting the panic button yet. I know this is how it goes. Like, listen, this isn't my first time hopping on a live after a loss. Like, we know how this goes. We know how this goes. When it doesn't even matter if it's preseason in a game that really doesn't matter. We know how it goes. So we're not going to jump to any conclusions. That's not what we do here. We will temper expectation. We will readjust evaluation. And we point out the things that we are concerned about. But guess what? The best thing about football is you either correct it or you don't. You can go a long stretch with things not working well, and then you just get it, and then things can turn on its head. So that's why we are never definitive with something until it feels definitive. And right now, the struggles with the offense, the offensive line, the connection that Lance is having right now with skill positions and things like that, it doesn't feel definitive yet. It feels like a part of the process. So you ever hear that? What was it? Was it Joel Embiid who said it all the time? Trust the process. It's part of the process, man. You just got to be a part at a certain point. You got to be along for the ride. It's not going to be cut or dry either way. It's a process, and you kind of have to be along for that ride. So that's how I'm viewing it. I don't see anything that is like ultra concerning. I will agree that I do think it is a little bit more concerning than I was hoping for. But that doesn't mean it can't be corrected. Doesn't mean they can't get things on track. Doesn't mean plugging in a guy here, plugging in a guy there changes things. So we'll see. I'm not here to like set the whole thing on fire and say the 49ers are winning 4 games this year. They actually got to play. Like we got to see. And guess what? When we get into the regular season becomes the true preseason for the 49ers. And then you're going to have to play 4, 5, 6 games to then really figure out who the 49ers are. So I know how this goes. I've been doing this a long time. I've been it's too soon to just write someone off or proclaim them the greatest. It's just too soon either way. Um, yeah, and exactly like Harry, people were yelling at me last year. People in this chat were screaming at me because I would not say that the 49ers should fire Kyle Shanahan. Screaming at me, telling me I was stupid. I don't know nothing. Because I said firing Kyle Shanahan is not the solution to the problem. I know you guys remember that. So nothing's going to change for me. You can literally all yell at me and tell me I'm an idiot because I won't declare the sky is falling. That's fine. But that's how I work. There, you got to trust the process a little bit. You got to trust the process a little bit. And right now, freaking out about a week 3 preseason game, that's not trusting the process. We can be alarmed. We can pinpoint concerns. We can review these things that look like they need improvement. But the season's up. Trey Lance, like you got people like victory lapping that Trey Lance is a bust. You're like, based on what? Based on what? I don't know. No idea. Did you think the 49ers were making the playoffs when they lost 4 games in a row? Did you think that? But I'm sure you enjoyed the ride when they were on their way to the NFC Championship. Trust the process. Chill out. Sack up. Get ready. This is football, baby. This is what it is. This is a game rooted in adversity. If you can't handle the adversity, then this ain't for you. This game is, you got to be tough, man. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And if you're freaking out about a week 3 preseason game, chill. Chill. We can be concerned. We can have our things we want to see better. We can have all those things. That's all valid. But having a definitively, like you're talking like Dick Tracy in the chat right now, it's like, we get it. We get it. It is what it is. We could talk about this. Trey needs to work on this. When it comes to Trey and him and his short throws, this is where I think he needs the most work. Because you can see when you get to short throws, you got to be ultra accurate. You got to fit it into a window literally about that big, and you got to get it in there quick. And like I said, when we see things going over the middle, they can sail on him. You want to get those down, but we can't pretend like we didn't watch Jimmy Garoppolo throw George Kittle into suicide passes like nonstop. I did a live stream in game, like where the chat had to walk me off the ledge because I was freaking out because Jimmy threw a ball high to Kittle over the middle. Kittle fully extends, exposing his ribs, throws him into a linebacker. Linebacker just takes out his rib cage, and I'm freaking out. Like, I am like, this is it. Get him out. Like, you're not going to hurt my king. Like, you're not going to hurt my Kittle. Like, how dare you? Like, I was livid. And this was live on stream. This is when we used to like live react for an entire game. I had people in the chat like, hey, bro, you got you gotta calm down. I was like, you're right. I gotta calm down. But man, like you got to keep the same energy. Like we can't look at Jimmy and be like he was this ultra like that's why this nuanced conversation when people compare, like they both have their struggles. Like they're both not perfect, but Jimmy is a veteran and has been here and he's done it. Trey is just getting started. Trey is just getting his feet wet, like just now. Like, so Trey deserves a longer leash. Like he needs some time. Just give him some time. Like, is it concerning that there are some inaccurate passes, in the short game? Yeah, a little bit, but ultimately just got to give him some time. Give him the reps, let him get comfortable to be able to do it. Then we'll have our reactions. Like if we get to like week 15 and it's getting worse, then we're like, "Oh, like okay, this is a little bit more concerning than what we previously thought." But for now, part of the process. Part of the process. Travis says, "I remember that live." Cap says, "I was hot too." Hey, bro, I was heated, man. I was about to jump through that screen, man. I was so upset. But again, we're gonna be upset at Trey too. It's the same energy, man. So I guess that's how we'll talk about how we talk about football in the SDS in this community. We are going to give it the air it needs to develop. Things don't happen in a vacuum. It takes time. There are sometimes you need to fail to be able to be successful, and I recognize that. So anytime there's a failure, I don't look at that as an ultimate, like especially in football, because football sometimes can be defined by who makes the least amount of mistakes. So when you're talking about a game that's as imperfect as football is, like you can't expect it to be perfect and then be mad when it's not perfect. You have to expect that it's going to be up, down, up, down, up, down until they tweak everything. They get the right teams and they build in the right spots and you have the right experience levels. And then you start to build up the expectation. Right now, we're still trying to figure out what we have. We know what we have in the defense. In the offense, there's a whole lot of unknown. Yes, you got your Debo, you got your Ayuk, you got your Kittle, you got your Trent, you got your Juice, but we got left guard to right tackle. No idea. We got a new quarterback. Don't really know. When we take a step back, we don't really know. We got a lot of running backs. We think we know what Elijah Mitchell is, but Elijah Mitchell has been dinged up throughout the majority of his career. Short career so far, but yeah, we haven't seen Elijah Mitchell all training camp. Oh, that's a lie. We saw him in training camp. We haven't seen him all preseason for the most part. But what does that translate to? I don't know. We're gonna find out. So ultimately, to put a big bow on all of that, this is what it's gonna sound like after the first couple losses. This is what it's gonna sound like. It's gonna be a lot of people in the chat freaking out, and me being like, I'm not ready to freak out yet. But I've proven like I will freak out. I've done it before and I will do it again. Um, but it typically takes pushing me to a certain level before I do so. It takes a lot. So as of right now, with the 17-0 loss against the Texans, I'm not freaking out. I do have a level of concern that has kind of peaked a little bit more. I'm a little bit more concerned about the interior offensive line, just a little bit. I am a little bit more concerned about kind of the arrow in which Banks is pointing. Banks was pointing up until the Packers game. He's kind of trending down right now. Is he going to trend back up once the season starts? That's what we are going to be looking for. Um, Burford, again, he's an ascending asset, but he's still fluctuating. He's still learning what it means to be an NFL player. So we are patient with Burford. McKivitz at right tackle, who could be starting. He's looked decent in camp, but not so decent as of late. So we got to see. We got to see. We got to see what it comes down to. So it's funny, man. If the 49ers continue to struggle early, there's going to be a lot of people who come out the cuts to be like, "See, I told you so." Like Mufasa. Like there's going to like it's preseason. It's preseason. Trey literally hasn't played a full game this year with a full group of starters. And you have a guy like Mufasa in the chat saying Trey is trash with his whole chest. Like, chill, dog. It's all good though. I'm looking forward to it, man. And again, we want to see a win against Chicago. That will definitely help ease our feelings. But use this to kind of callous yourself up. Use this feeling from this preseason game to kind of callous you up a little bit, kind of harden your soul just a little bit. Just kind of callous your heart because this is what the season is going to feel like. I think for the offense. I think once you see the defense in action, it's going to make things a lot more palatable, more manageable. Because you're going to see that defense just destroy people. Like again, we've talked about it. Justin Fields is going to be on the run a lot. Justin Fields has no offensive line at all to speak of. And when you sick the 49ers defense against them with Nick Bosa leading the way, he's going to be on the ropes. And that is going to build confidence and build a style of complementary football with the offense. And then you're going to hopefully see more rhythm and more gelling together. But until then, we just have to speculate. So overall, my takeaway from this game, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, Nate Sudfeld, wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. So that's a good thing. At least it wasn't the worst. So wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. It was right there in the middle. There are plenty of things to identify and pinpoint that he could continue to work on, and I think we all understand like what Trey is going to continue to work on. It's going to be the I call them layup throws, just the throws you got to make, the ones that we get excited about the deep throws downfield. It's the ones over the middle, just being able to hit those, and watching his continued progression and maturation through that. With the running backs, we got to figure out who's going to make the final cut. Don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if any wide receivers really pulled away. It has felt like this whole time that Malik Turner has been the sixth. I don't know if they keep six. Maybe they keep five. I don't know. We'll see. Tight ends felt like Dwelly had a good day. Was able to kind of help solidify himself. On the defensive side, I thought Charles Omenihu had a nice sack. Samson Ebukam had a nice sack. Samuel Womack had the nice play. Tarvarius Moore with the interception. Heads up play by him. You had a Jordan Willis sack. Feels like Jordan Willis has a role on this team. But you didn't get a whole lot of starters. You got a whole lot of backups on the defense because the defense is solidified. And so with the offense, you didn't get a whole lot of starters either. You got some. But I think we all saw. We want to see offensive line step it up, and we want to see Trey elevate his game as well. But it's a work in progress, so we'll continue to watch it all. So that's what it comes down to. And we got some time now. We got some time to marinate. So let's marinate. Get used to it. There's going to be a lot of conversations about it. But again, you guys already know. It's always a fun day when the 49ers are on, even if they get goose-egged by the Texans. Hey, we got football back. Some people are like, nah, I don't want football back if it's gonna be like this. I'm still happy. I'm still happy that we got football, even if it didn't translate into the best game that we wanted to see. But hey, part of the process. Trust the process. It's gonna be a long process. So appreciate you guys for tapping in. You guys already know we'll be talking more 49ers football the rest of the week as everything continues to progress and as we start to inch closer to week 1. Now all our sights are set on the Bears, and we're probably going to put this game behind us pretty quickly. I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot to tape to break down. We'll get into the tape. I'll watch it, I think, but it might be ugly, and I might not want to show any of it to you because it might not be worth it. So, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. You guys already know. Appreciate you guys. Sub if you haven't already. Hit that like button on your way out. Roland says, keep this chat for receipts. Receipts have been saved. And just so you guys know, if you're new here and you got guys like this keeping your receipts, and if they send them to me and we see you in the chat later on down the road, we will absolutely pull the receipts 100%. So just be warned. Like if you're coming in with the real hot take like Mufasa, just be prepared to stand on it. Just be prepared. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Just be prepared. We keep those receipts around here. And again, it's preseason. So, yeah, they go both ways. 100%. Of course they go both ways. Of course they go both ways. What do you think this is? This is CVS over here. This is CVS. We keep those long receipts, baby. We expect the same in return. So, appreciate you guys. We're out of here. Would have liked a better outcome, but hey, we know how it goes. Appreciate you guys.